haven't been smooching. Anyone says we've been smooching is a dirty liar.
Okay.
What?
That would. Hi guys.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Today is the 28th of October. We've slightly lost track of what episode it is, but it is our baby vlog, which is Up the Duff with Chris and Ellie, or Ellie and Chris actually. I think I got first billing for this one, which I think's fair.
Because you do most of the talking.
I do most of the talking. I'm also doing most of the baby making.
Most of the pregnancy, yeah.
Yeah, most of it. So yeah, for the couples who say like we are pregnant, I'm like we are, but mainly me.
I don't ever say that to that,
No.
do I? I wouldn't claim that.
We are expecting a baby. I am pregnant.
Yes. But I fully expect a baby.
Yes, I very much expect a baby. Yeah, so it's been a little while, mainly because sort of I've just been tootling along with being pregnant, and there hasn't been a huge amount to report, other than just still feel quite crap. But we do have some stuff to report today. So we'll get to that. But yeah, just sort of for how I've been doing, slightly better, I think is fair to say. Like eating is less of a chore. So I am eating now. I still haven't gained a pound, which I'll be 17 weeks pregnant tomorrow. And so 4 and a bit months, that is. I sort of thought I'd be quite big by now, and you won't be able to see from this angle, but I have got a bit of a bump now. My boobs are a lot bigger than they were when this started, and they were already fucking ample. But I haven't changed weight at all. I am still exactly, in fact I was half a pound lighter than I was when I first got pregnant this morning.
My weight has fluctuated wildly, hasn't it, during the pregnancy?
So although it's fluctuated, it's sort of gone up or down by sort of 1 or 2 pounds. I'm definitely not yet gaining, which I was a bit concerned about. But then I've done a little bit of sort of asking around online and digging around and reading my little baby books that the midwife gave me, and it's not anything to be concerned about. If I was
just a humble brag is all it is.
No, because I will get hefty. I was just surprised, because I think like that's for anybody who's watching this who is sort of trying or is expecting, who isn't as far along as me. I think it genuinely might be reassuring to people, because I thought I should. It's nothing to do with getting fat. Like,
What?
all of weight gain is not really meant to be fat during pregnancy. It's meant to be baby.
Baby.
So I thought it might be concerning to have not gained weight. So actually, like, what are you laughing at that for? That seems reasonable to me.
No, it's very reasonable.
Why are you laughing then?
I just said it's a humble brag. I didn't mean it. Obviously, I didn't mean it was a humble brag, and you've gone on quite a lengthy sort of defence of like, not a humble brag. I know. Well, that was a joke I was doing for the people.
But yeah,
I thought they might like if I do some jokes, because I haven't really got much else to contribute to this one.
Fair enough. But yeah, for anybody who was sort of in the same boat, I think it was reasonable to be a little bit concerned, because it's like, oh well, does that mean that the baby's not getting as big as it should be, and like, is this anything to worry about? It's not, apparently. It does slightly differ depending on what your starting weight was. I think it's fair to say I was not underweight to begin with. If you were like underweight when you got pregnant, you should have gained by now. I wasn't. This was not a problem. So yeah, basically your weight gain will vary depending on what your starting weight was, which makes sense, and the point at which you start. So I actually think what's happened to me is I've lost a fair bit of fat, because my shape has changed, but my weight hasn't. So I think in the first sort of, particularly in the first 12 weeks, I wasn't eating much at all. I felt really sick. I definitely wasn't getting a lot of calories in me. And I think I probably did lose quite a bit of fat over that time. But it evened out with sort of gaining, because obviously you're gaining baby, but also your uterus gets bigger. You're gaining a placenta, which is sort of about the same size as the baby. So there's all stuff going on in there. My boobs have got bigger, which I keep mentioning, but it's phenomenal. And not necessarily in an entirely pleasurable way for myself, because, as I say, they were ample anyway, and they're just sore and hefty now.
She looks good though when she's getting changed.
Oh well, that's good. I'm glad there's not upside.
Swings and roundabouts now. Let's accentuate the positives.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'll take the positives, but we've got a wedding to plan for, and I had no bras that fit, so I had to buy new bras, which is a bit of a pain. But you know, worse things happen at sea, innit? But yeah, so that's sort of how I've been tootling along. So yeah, I think like it's safe to say that I'm feeling a bit better in myself. I'm still shattered and I'm still basically entirely unproductive. Not able to get a lot done. I'm very tired, very sort of lackluster and quite drained. Last couple of days I've been a bit sore as well. I think they're sort of slightly fibro-y, but I had my jabs in either the top of either arm. So the jabs that you have at 16 weeks or onwards are recommended to have your flu jab. That's just because sort of obviously you're higher risk for being pregnant if you get flu. It's not particularly for the baby, it's more for you because you'd have a harder time of it. But then the other was whooping cough, which I never know whether it's whooping cough or whooping cough. It's spelt whooping cough, but people seem to say whooping cough. I don't know.
I've not. I thought whooping cough was one of those ones like there's been sort of
eradicated with vaccines, but the baby basically, me having the whooping cough jab now means the baby will be immune to whooping cough up to being about 2 months old if I have it during pregnancy. So that's why you have to wait till at least 16 weeks along. So I'm already immune, but the jab's really so that the baby is immune, because the baby gets jabs I think when they're about 2 months old. So there's a couple of jabs that you have during pregnancy that are to protect the baby in those first couple of months before it can have its jabs. And I'm carefully saying it, but we know what we're having.
Do know.
So yesterday,
and we shan't tell. Oh, right, we're telling you.
Yesterday we went along. So as I say, I'm 16 weeks and 6 days today. So yesterday I was 16 weeks and 5 days. You can go for a gender scan from 16 weeks, but they do kind of say we can't guarantee we'll be able to tell you. Largely depends on what position the baby's in and whether or not, because they do a bit of sort of poking around and sort of give your belly a jiggle to try and get the baby to move. Another thing that they do for this one is they recommended that 15 minutes before the scan I have a fizzy drink and something sugary to eat to get the baby moving. So I gave little Babbins a little bit of a sugar rush prior to going in.
You said something weird.
I did say something weird, which it wasn't weird thing to say, but out of context it would be a terrible thing to say.
You said I've given it its treat and now it needs to open its legs and show us its genitals.
I don't think I worded it quite like that, but I think I said
pretty much word for word.
No, I definitely used the phrase nether regions.
Nether regions, okay. Oh well, that makes it better. I mean, how can we? You've just gone, oh, give it some candy and it'll show us its bits. Like, how can we warn it about stranger danger when it's already trapped inside a dangerous stranger, offering it candy in exchange for flashes?
There's no real way I can spin that.
No,
it just sounds terrible. What a terrible mother I am.
I think you're going to be an excellent mother, but I think that was a stumble, and I'm very disappointed in you.
Yeah, there's no way to spin that really, but yeah, it was. I've given you the nice sugary treat. Now show us your nether regions, which is not something that should be said to any child. Thankfully, this particular child cannot understand what I am saying yet. It just knows my voice. Actually, it doesn't know my voice yet. In a few weeks' time, I think around about 22 weeks, baby can actually distinguish between different people's voices. But from 16 weeks onwards, they do recommend talking to baby because it helps with brain development. They are listening. It's stimulating for them. So we have been having little chats with Babbins, which is nice. But yes, I think largely it is all sort of interesting noises at this stage. But from around about 22 weeks, apparently they can sort of tell different voices apart. So we'll be doing the hello, I am mummy, and this is daddy, and having little chats. Which is hopelessly twee, but very nice. I didn't think I would sort of be twee like this, but actually I really do enjoy talking to Bump. But yes, I should get back to scan.
I thought she'd be twee like this.
Yeah, maybe. So back to scan. So we decided to go along for one. Our NHS scan is in a few weeks' time, and I'm impatient, and I just want to sort of know things along the way, really. So we kind of planned it thinking, well, if they can tell us the gender, great. If not, it'll still be nice to sort of check in with baby. Yeah,
because even if we hadn't seen the gender, we saw it as all healthy and happy. had a full little stomach and a full little bladder, so everything's working properly.
Heather was the sonographer, and she was like, see this? That's that little sort of black dot there. That's a full tummy. Baby's also got a full bladder, which is a really good sign because it means that their systems are sort of working. Because I didn't know any of this, but when they're in there, to sort of, I guess it does make sense to sort of get their digestive system working and all of their systems working. Really, they do actually swallow amniotic fluid, and it goes through their systems, so they get full tummies, they pee, they don't actually poo.
They cry as well to get the tear ducts working, don't they?
Working.
I think that's something they've only discovered fairly recently.
Yeah, that was a bit emotive, that was, because you can't do anything to comfort a baby that is crying in utero.
I don't think it's like emotional crying, though.
No, I think it's, sort of, well, it might be sort of getting,
bit of
like, yeah, a little bit sort of, just kicking off a little bit. Maybe complaining when I eat things it doesn't like, perhaps. But yeah, so it was absolutely lush, actually, the scan. We did do one of the ones they call 4D. I don't know why it's 4-dimensional. It's 3-dimensional. I don't know. It's not like height, width, breadth, and time.
It also
I think it's called 4D because it's in real time.
Well, we saw it moving, didn't we? So it was going through time, but
yeah, it was a strange phrasing though, I think. But Babbins was wriggling about a bit, so we actually saw a few different positions. One thing that actually made my heart almost explode with joy was we actually saw a little yawn, which was adorable, like stretched out. I keep nearly slipping. Its little arm and mouth opened and did a little wriggle. That was just adorable because it was so recognisably a yawn, which was just so sort of human and relatable and like, oh, I love you. Also, this was also quite cute, but, well, cute depending on your perspective. I found it adorable. You might find it quite gross. I don't know. It depends on your sort of inclinations. But Babbins was deliberately direct. There's quite a lot of room in there at the moment. It will get a bit tight on space as we go along. But there's sort of ample room in there. But Babbins was very deliberately cuddling, is the best word for it, clutching onto my placenta and squishing a little face into it, which Heather said is a sign that baby is content and comfy and literally is clutching in like they would with a cuddly toy or with blankets.
You're already having a hug off the baby.
I'm having a hug, a very weird, very specific hug.
So I think I get first dibs when it's born, right?
We'll see. Very much depends on the type of birth I have, because if it was sort of a C-section or anything, which I'm hoping not to have, but if it was, they would hand to you first. But generally speaking, they do try to have skin on skin immediately with mother. So if it comes out downstairs, as it hopefully will, they'll probably pass to me first, then they clean it up, and then they'll give it to both of us to sort of hand round between us as we see fit.
I can do skin on skin as well. I can rip my t-shirt off and
whack
get
it
involved.
off. Skin on skin contact as soon as possible after birth is very important for bonding. It actually really improves the baby's outlook generally, like significantly. So they do try to do it with C-sections anyway. So obviously it's quite difficult because when you have a C-section, they put up sort of a big curtain. I think mainly so that you can't see what's going on because it's a horror show. We won't get into that right now, but then they will still, if you're awake, because sometimes you have to go under general for a C-section, but usually they try and avoid that. They just give you an epidural and numb you from the waist down and do it all behind a curtain. But yes, ideally with a vaginal birth, they will just pop them in your arms straight away. And that is apparently just much more positive for the baby bonding with the parents, and also just sort of coming into the world in a slightly less traumatic way. It's obviously, it makes sense because they've been used to feeling very warm and safe, and suddenly it's cold and it's bright, and then they can make noise that they've not been able to make, and that's all probably very strange and overwhelming. So I guess it's a comforting, reassuring thing. So back to scan. So we saw some nice little wriggles and little cushions in with the placenta, but we'd gone there sort of saying, this is a health and wellbeing scan, but if you can tell us the gender, brilliant. And very quickly on arrival, basically Heather just kind of went, yep, can definitely see gender. Do you want us to get straight to that? And I was like, yes, please. So our decision on whether or not to find out the gender, I think we've mentioned before, was we just figure it's more information you can get along the way. I understand why people would prefer to keep it a surprise. I can see the appeal of that as well, but for us, I think we just wanted to know. And I'm so glad we did, because we've done a few scans, we've done a few of these things, and I didn't have a preference. I genuinely don't think I did.
No, and we don't mind what the gender is, and we realise that, you know, gender and identity are two different things, and it doesn't define who they are as a person or any of that. But I think it just gives you a sense when it's like the baby has been so abstract. Yeah. And also when it's still so long before you're going to get to meet them and know any more about them. Just anything you can find out that just makes it feel a bit more real and just...
Yeah, I think I've really struggled with is just not having a pronoun to use, because they feels like I've got several in there, and it feels very dehumanizing. So obviously, if baby grows up and wants to change their pronouns, fine. Absolutely fine. This is not what this is about, but it's just helping us.
It's the 90s. You use what pronouns you want. That's what we'll say.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just sort of so that we've got an easy parlance with it, I think. But I'm so glad because I didn't have a preference, and I didn't know how I'd feel about being told. I just thought it would be nice to know. But of all the scans and all the bits of news, including even of the scans, obviously actually looking at a positive pregnancy test was probably on par. But being told the sex of the baby was probably the biggest emotional rush I've had of all of the. I nearly cried. I didn't cry, but I nearly cried. And it was just an explosion of feeling really happy and excited. Now, I don't think that's because of what the sex was. I think it was just a sudden, real rush of the reality of this person that I am growing is a real person that is has a pronoun.
You're really teasing this out, aren't you?
So yes, so she said, "Do you want to know?" And we were both like, "Yes, please." And then she said, and I can't remember her wording because it was all a bit of a rush, but basically we know what we're having. We are having, you ready? We do this together?
I'm ready. Together?
Yeah. We are having a girl.
Baby. Oh, right, yes, okay. We're having a girl baby.
A girl baby, yeah, we're having a daughter. Which, the news of that was really overwhelming, but in such a lovely way. And I suspect I would have felt exactly the same if we were having a son, but it was such a powerful rush of reality, but a lovely, lovely bit of reality. So being able to think of our daughter and think of her name and call her she and all of that just really was bloody lush. I highly recommend it, guys. So yeah, I was absolutely beaming. Well, we were both beaming for ages after that, when we came home and sort of talking about the whole thing and talking to her and being able to sort of tell her. We've decided on the name and we've been referring to her by the name, but we are keeping that to ourselves.
Yes. What, first name and a middle name, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we're 100% on those. I guess time, like I think that's also partly why I want to keep it to ourselves, because I think if we tell people now, you commit and somebody might say something that then sort of puts you off, and you're just kind of avoiding hearing people's...
We've heard horror stories, haven't we, of people telling people their name and then like a best friend or someone nicks the name for their own baby. And
I don't know anybody else who's pregnant at the moment, but that would be a bit of a dick move.
Or just someone you don't really like might be like, oh yeah, you told me that, and then I told my cousin and now she's using it, and you're like, what? You're ropey cousins, baby.
So we're just keeping them to ourselves, keeping the names, but she's a she. And all seems to be well with her. She looks really well. She was, basically everything was perfect. Everything looks exactly as it should. Heart rate is perfect. Oh, we might have to pause because our telly's just kicked itself back on. I think I had it on pause and it's just turned itself on. Hang on. Yes, sorry about that. Everything was all golden. Heart rate perfect, size perfect, movement levels all good.
By the way, she said, Heather said to us that you could tell the gender because she showed us like on the scan between the legs there was like 3 little dots, and she said, "Oh, that's
female anatomy.
Anatomy."
That's not what mine looks like.
Well, and then she said if it was a boy, there'd be a little triangle. And I was expecting...
And then she said, because that's going to be little plums.
Little plums, yes, that was what she said. Which I was expecting, like, either like a little willy...
Yeah.
Or like a little slit, or just the absence of a willy, and then you'd know either way. Like,
yeah, I guess...
I think that's the thing, like, in kind of sitcoms or movies or whatever, that's the idea. Someone's go, oh, yeah, it's definitely a boy, look at that,
Yeah, you imagine to sort of see... Because actually... That part of the scan we didn't do in the 3D scan. We did that with the 2D sort of ultrasound, and that's kind of a flat image. So I guess you are doing more cross sections rather than like outlines. So I guess it does make sense because you wouldn't be able to sort of get a side view because his legs in the way. So she actually sort of got the view from looking from underneath, and little Babbins was being very cooperative. Legs were splayed, so my little chat clearly worked. Those donuts I ate beforehand worked a treat. So yeah, she was like, oh, it's perfect view, 100%, no doubt about it. That is female anatomy that we are looking at there. So that was exciting because it was just like, well, we were prepared to not find out, but we were hoping to find out. But yeah, it was. I guess she does this all day every day and has an eye for this, but it's not particularly recognisable to a layman. I would say, if anything, I would see the 3 dots and be like, well, that's 3 distinct parts. Maybe that's male anatomy, but there we go.
But something else I thought is that obviously like the 4D scan is like, it's cute and you're seeing your baby and you can get a good view of like, oh, there's a face, there's an ear, you can see there's an ear, and actually you can kind of get a clearer view than on some of the 2D scans. That's quite exciting, but it's not always the prettiest view, and your baby looks like quite squashed and like almost misshapen in places.
Yeah, it's a slightly disconcerting shade of orange, so it does at times look like an overbaked lasagna.
And I thought, and I'm sure this is typical, as you say, she assured us everything was fine.
Oh, sorry.
But I thought baby's arse looked a bit bony. a little kind of more of a hinge, wasn't it?
Did have very skinny little legs and little, like, cause she referred to being able to see bum cheeks, and I was like, I wouldn't call that a cheek. That is a bony bum we're looking at there. But she did say, don't worry, like at this stage, she's a skinny mini, and that's normal. They don't sort of chub up, like, because you picture babies as looking like babies, but it's got some weight to put on. I guess muscles need to develop actually, and sort of, but also there's no body fat or anything, whereas you get a good amount of chub on a baby, hopefully. But that will all come over time as baby grows. But yeah, at the moment, a little alien-esque, but very distinctly, clearly a baby, sort of, but long, quite skinny legs, quite skinny arms, quite a sort of elfin little alien-esque face.
Yeah.
But cute but weird. I think it's fair to say.
There's lots of people, because it is something you get asked about a lot, is do you know what you're having, is it a boy or a girl? Like, I don't know about you, that's a question I've had a lot when I've been at work and things. People are like,
first thing people ask, and I'm like, well, I don't know yet, but now, well, we're not telling people until this goes out. So.
Yeah, but now I'll be able to tell people at work and things like that. And like the other day I was offered like a baby bouncer, and they said, oh, it's barely been used, it's very clean, and it's a nice one, and it's in good condition. So the only thing is we'll have to wait and see what you're having, because it's pink. And
which
now
our attitude is, we couldn't give a shit, mate. Yeah, we will happily give a boy a pink bouncer.
We are having a girl, so that's quote unquote appropriate.
To be honest,
if you care about that sort of thing.
I will probably quite strictly limit the amount of pink that we have.
Well, if anything, you're more, less keen to have pink now than you were.
Rather have a blue bouncer.
But either way, if there's a good, decent quality bit of baby kit that we could use, and we don't have loads of money right now to just lay out on stuff because we have a preference over the colour, we'll take it, won't we? And the baby's not going to know the difference. No,
a baby that is young enough to be in a bouncer is not going to be aware of, let alone give a damn about what colour it is.
We're not going to... But I mean, even if we wanted to indoctrinate our baby into masculinity or femininity, which we don't really, but even if we did, I think we'd be too young to start. So, like, we care. But
Yeah,
it
I
is...
think like being overly precious about things like that is a bad sign, really. But yeah, we'll take whatever.
Have we talked on this about like gender reveal parties and things like that?
I possibly fleetingly, but we haven't sort of gone into any depth. I don't think
it's difficult. Like I understand people wanting to have a bit of fun with it, and it's that thing of like pregnancy can be a bit of a rough time for the mother, and you can't drink.
To be fair, it can probably be quite a rough time for you too.
Well, but
just different reasons.
You've
just
had
because I'm insufferable.
You've had it. No, you're not insufferable at all. You're very good. But I think, but as a mum, you can't go out as much with your friends. You're feeling rough. You can't drink. You can't always eat your favourite foods. You just feel, and I think anything you can do to kind of have a bit of fun with it and have a celebration along the way, I get. But equally, making such a big deal of the gender and making this brand thing.
Guys, I find them a little tasteless, to be honest. Like you say, I think it's nice to have stuff to celebrate, but I just think that's a weird thing to celebrate because it sort of suggests first and foremost that you have a preference to be like, yay! And I'm like, well, it's a baby. But essentially, a gender reveal party is let's have a party to tell you what type of genitals my child has. Very weird.
That is weird, but then it's not really. I mean, it is the question that everyone's asking, isn't it? What genitals is your baby going to have? Like that is the question. So it's how much weirder is it really than just the normal standard stuff? No. But then it gets to the extreme where people have been setting off fireworks and starting forest fires as part of a gender reveal thing, and it's like it's not worth that, is it? It's not worth the.
It's definitely not worth mass destruction to the environment.
It's gone to like a mad extreme, and I was thinking about this because. We have to give this vlog, each episode of this we give a name, a title, and not to be cynical about it, but like anyone who's making anything that they're going to put out into the world, you kind of want as many people who might like it to see it or get a chance to look at it as possible, and part of that is having an eye-catching title. So obviously there's a bit of you that goes, well, something about the gender in this one, like the gender reveal episode or whatever, and that'll hook more people in than usual, maybe.
Up the Duff with Ellie and Chris. What type of genitals does your baby have?
There you go. Just really blunt about it. Okay, fine, yeah.
Because that's what people are asking. I absolutely, I want to say, I don't think this is ever asked with sort of ill intent. I think it's you don't have a lot of information as you go along. Basically, the questions I'm getting are, how are you feeling? Do you know what you're having? Like, there's not a lot to ask,
not a lot
really.
Of questions. Yeah, you can't. This is completely out of. But how big is the baby now?
I think 5. They do it from crown to rump, so actually from top of head to bottom rather than legs. But I think we're at about 5.5 inches.
So how's that in fruit?
I was a fruit I didn't recognise. Well, it was a type of orange, but I've not heard of it. It was like a something orange.
Like a navel orange?
Was that this week or was that last week?
So it's a type of orange.
A big old orange.
What was it in treats?
I think next week. So from tomorrow, I'm about grapefruit sized.
Oh.
So
but don't be thinking you could fit our baby in a grapefruit because all the legs would be sticking out the bottom. All the legs. Both the legs would be sticking out the bottom.
We've checked. There's 2.
2 legs.
2 legs, 2 arms.
Yes, correct numbers.
I've got wriggly fingers now as well. That's cute. So yeah. I should have probably double checked that. But yeah, I think from tomorrow I'm a grapefruit. So grapefruit sized baby.
Also, there's another update that we've not mentioned on this yet. Is you actually felt the baby move.
Oh yes. Now I should say it's quite sort of abstract and very difficult to pinpoint, and you don't have what you would consider to be kicks or anything sort of distinctive as that at this stage. Usually women who've had babies before start to feel movement earlier, but only because they recognise how it feels based on like how it develops, because obviously it gradually gets more and more noticeable. So what most women tend to describe is at this sort of stage they start to feel a little bit of fluttering, as though and I remember my friend Kath, she described it as, the best way I can describe it is it kind of feels like there's a goldfish swimming around in there, just like you imagine little fluttery bits of sort of tail and fin, and it's sort of delicate and gentle. It's not sort of something poking and prodding you. Like it's sort of, just feeling something. So the other day, I'm not sure how many days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, because obviously your stomach's doing all sorts of odd things anyway. You sort of, your digestion's a bit odd and you're feeling a bit queasy and there's all sorts going on. So time in my abdomen has been a riot lately. But I suddenly, while I was in the bath, I felt something distinctive, but very hard to describe. And it was the first time, because a couple of times I've sort of been thinking, I might start to feel movement this week. So I've sort of been thinking about feeling movement, and then you feel something and you're like, is that, or am I just sort of projecting that because I'm thinking about whether or not I can feel movement? But this was the first time I wasn't thinking about. I was on my phone. I was doing something. I think I was playing Scrabble, actually, as is my right. And suddenly
very defensive about the word games.
And suddenly I felt something happen. And the best way I can describe it is it didn't really feel like a flutter. It did feel like it was gentle, but it felt like somewhere in the inside of me, kind of like a little bit of pressure, like a sort of brush stroke, just kind of something going, and just sort of fair bit of pressure, but just a little. It felt like something rubbing something. Is the best way I can describe it. My friend Elle did a good description of how she sort of described it before it becomes sort of firm kicks and prods and pokes that you can sort of identify a bit better. Is she sort of said it kind of feels like when you rub your tongue on the inside of your cheek, like a sort of little, sort of quite smooth but distinctive kind of, I can feel that kind of feeling.
And I hope you're all trying that at home,
yeah,
like I am now.
I hope everybody watching is going, yeah, so not firm, not probably firm enough even to like poke your cheek out, but just, yeah. That's sort of what I felt. And I was like, I think I felt something then. And it was the first time it was something distinctive. Now, a couple of times since then, and it's not all the time by any means, and I imagine at this stage, it very much probably depends on both what position I'm in and what position baby is in, because as I said, there's actually quite a lot of room in my uterus at the moment, so most of the wriggles probably aren't gonna really put pressure on anything enough for me to really feel it. But just when baby's in the right position, right curled up against the edge of my uterus, and maybe another bit of my body is pushing up against that bit of uterus, maybe there's just a little bit of a chance that a kick or an elbow might just be enough to feel something, and I think that's what's going on. But it's odd, but it's nice. It was lovely. That was quite an exciting moment as well, because it was just sort of, this is new and this will develop and this is all going in the right direction. It's something reassuring along the way. And I'm, as you know by now, quite an anxious person anyway, and I do obsess over things and I worry over things, and I'm trying not to do it too much, and I think I think it's reasonable levels of anxiety rather than sort of unhealthy levels, but most women will describe being quite anxious, just worrying that baby's okay, particularly at this stage where I can't really tell what's going on in there, I can't really feel anything. I've got a little bit of a bump, but it's not enough of a bump to sort of look and feel properly pregnant. So anything along the way that gives you a bit of reassurance that everything's good is lovely. And I think feeling like over the coming weeks I'll have more and more movement and it will feel more and more distinctively like movement is really reassuring and lovely and kind of exciting and very weird. It is weird. There's a human that is moving entirely independent of me inside my abdomen right now. That's quite a unique thing to experience, and it'll be a while. It'll be a fair few weeks before any movement can be felt by anybody else on the outside. So I'm hogging that.
The minute you could feel it, you kind of called me upstairs, and you tried to get me to kind of feel your stomach, and then we looked into it and was like, oh no, that's not.
It's going to be weeks and weeks before anybody else can feel it. But it was exciting.
Because if I lick the inside of my, I can feel that with my finger, but I think my cheek skin is probably thinner than your stomach skin plus womb.
and all my like intestines and general like internal
gubbins.
organs going on there. So yeah, it does make sense that you wouldn't be able to, but it was wishful thinking / optimism on our part and naivety. But yeah, so that was a really nice, exciting milestone as well. So yeah, plenty to report this week. Also, we should say, so I think last time we spoke, I'd actually come back from our 12-week scan. I think was the last time we spoke, possibly. I can't really remember, to be honest. So at that scan, we had various tests, but we didn't have the results of them. I have had my midwife appointment this week and had the results of all of those, which, to be honest, I kind of thought they would have sent me in the post. Because there were quite a lot of tests done, and you usually get test results sent to you, but I guess they just send them to the midwife, and if there's any problems, they tell you. But thankfully,
no problems.
No problems. Everything golden. My blood results were good. My iron levels are good. There were no signs of any chromosomal anomalies from the ultrasound scan. I do not have any nasties like syphilis or HIV, so that's good. Not that I particularly thought that was a high risk, but you never know.
That would be a weird one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Field.
That would have been a strange blog entry. By the way,
baby's healthy, but we've both got syphilis.
Oh, I don't think that would mean the baby would be healthy either. I think that would very much probably affect baby too. But thankfully, no syphilis, so that's good to know. So we had the results from that. So yeah, this week's midwife appointment was a bit of a strange one. I was imagining it being a bit more in depth than it was. So I went for my jabs, which of course, like they're fine, but my arms ache a bit. So as I say, flu and whooping cough. But then meeting with the midwife, who basically just sort of checked that everything was okay and asked me to pee in a pot. And then I peed in the pot. They tested the pee was fine. Off I went. I was sort of imagining a bit more of an in-depth chat, and they were going to sort of tell me things that I needed to know, but it was more just, you all right? Yeah? All right. Okay. But then just told me to schedule another midwife appointment for around about the 25-week mark. So our next landmark, healthcare-wise, is the anomaly scan, which is at 20 weeks. So that is, again, in the hospital. It's an ultrasound. It's checking for that everything's developing as it should by that stage. And then after that, I've got midwife chat at 25 weeks, which is going to be a bit of a bugger to schedule, actually, because I'll be 25 weeks dead on Christmas Eve. So the week between Christmas and New Year's is really the week I need to do that, and I don't know if I'll be able to schedule that for then, so it'll be in there somewhere. And then in January, I've got my obstetrics checkup. Because of my existing health conditions, which is fibromyalgia, I am going to have an obstetrics referral to decide whether or not I should have an obstetrics-led birth or not. Probably won't. Basically, the midwife I spoke to at the time, who was at the hospital, said it's going to be up to the obstetrics team to decide, but judging by the fact that you have managed to sort of come off your meds without too much of a sort of trial, and the fact that your health was well managed, at least before you got pregnant, and we don't see any signs of any problems, it'll probably be midwife led. Then there's always, if you have a midwife led delivery, if there are any problems, you'll then just have an obstetrics referral. But for women with for whatever reason high risk pregnancies, they may have an obstetrician sort of checking in with them along the way during the latter stages of pregnancy as well. I probably won't, but the obstetrics team will make that decision for me, and I'll go with what they say, really, on that one. I'm not going to sort of dig my heels in on anything there. Same with the birth itself. I will follow largely the experts. I'll have preferences on things that I hope for, but as and when things are all happening, I kind of think the experts know what they're doing better than I do, so I'll kind of go by their judgment, really. But then, yeah, I guess I don't know enough. If I was perhaps a midwife, I might have strong feelings about what type of thing I did and didn't want. But this is all new to me, so I will follow the experts, I think is fair to say. So a couple of people have sort of started talking to me about, like, do you know your birth plan and things? I'm like, no, not really. I know very little about it. I've got, again, ideas and preferences, but I haven't sat down with somebody who knows what they're talking about to sort of hash them out. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a Microsoft Teams chat with the local health boards. It's called the BABI group, which is BABI, which I think is Bump and Baby something. I don't know what the I stands for.
Interrogation.
But it's sort of a big group chat, which would normally have been meetings in person, but because of COVID, it's all now online.
It's now
but
Bump and Baby isolation.
Yeah, so we'll have a few of the healthcare experts to chat to, and also mothers and mothers to be, all sort of having a chat, asking questions, and helping to sort of support each
They
other.
could have one for unmarried mothers, and then it'd be Bump and Baby Inglorious Bastards.
That'd be Babig, a Babib.
Well,
Babib.
Babib.
Illegitimates. Could be for the I there. Bump and Baby illegitimates.
Illegitimate, sounds bad though, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
Inglorious Bastards has a kind of heroic edge to it.
Well, Glorious Bastards would be more heroic though, wouldn't it?
But I don't know, but the film was called Inglorious Bastards, but they were like Nazi hunters, so...
Just got ginger beer up my nose. Excuse me.
That always happens when I talk about Nazis.
So yeah, so it's been quite busy. So I'll be chatting to some other mums to be and stuff tomorrow. So I don't know how that's going to go. It's at 10 a.m, which I'm not entirely happy about. So
Is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
I only got the confirmation about that today. It's all voluntary, but it's just recommended. And because I can't really do antenatal classes or anything like that at the moment, I figure it will be handy to just have some other experts, but also other mums to be that I can maybe have a chat with. One of the things I should look into, well, I have started looking into it, but I haven't started doing it, is perhaps pregnancy yoga, which is sort of stretches and things that you can do that will help your abdominal strength and flexibility ready for birth. Very hard to sum up the sort of enthusiasm to do anything active, because I mainly want to be lying down and not moving at all times at the moment. Which I think when I've been really sick up to now, that's been acceptable, but actually I'm in the window now where I can do the most good for my body, so I should, but I fail to be enthused. But yeah, I also want to have at least a smooth delivery as possible, so I should do the things that will help that be the case. So that's something I'm going to start looking into. Hopefully it's something that I can, because obviously we can't do classes at the moment, so there are online tutorials, and some yoga studios are doing online classes and things, which will be difficult for me to do because we don't really have somewhere I can easily point the webcams fixed to the computer. So usually with an online class they'd be able to see you and guide you through what you're doing. I think I might have to just do sort of online tutorials where I just watch and copy.
Can you turn the monitor around so it faces that way and do the yoga?
Maybe. I just don't know if we're going to be able to get a good angle where they'll be able to see what I'm doing, but we'll see. I'll experiment with that. So we should probably call it a day soon.
Yes,
is there anything that we haven't mentioned? I think that covers all the big ones.
I think that's all the pregnancy stuff.
So yeah,
I mean, obviously people are welcome to check out my YouTube channel if you're interested.
Please do. Please do. We need to get him to 100 subscribers.
And like and subscribe to this channel as well.
Yes, please do. And please do actually share this around with any mums to bees, dads to bees, all of that. Anyone you think might be interested.
Bees to bees.
And anyone that you think might like it. Help us get to 100 subscribers on this vlog as well. Because when we do that, we can change the name to something better. So in the meantime, I will continue cooking up a little girl in my uterus for you, for your entertainment only, and probably for other reasons as well. And we will be back next time with letting you know just how we're getting on.
Lovely.
So yeah, do like and subscribe, guys. There's no shame in it, none whatsoever. Bye.
Bye.